part of the reason why I wanted to do this is actually so that what's to do, what's the answer, and I have 5 particular points, which apparently is probably pretty relevant in terms of things we can do to kind of start to address some of the issues that we're seeing between the sexes. Number 1 is listen and be intellectually curious about more than oneself. Just a refusal to do this means that you basically either find the subject matter uninteresting. So just to justify why you feel like you don't need to know, don't need to listen, or don't need to be more knowledgeable about a particular perspective.
I just want to say I appreciate you. This conversation, I'm just sitting there like, oh. And the reason why is because we can have, like I said before, we can have an honest conversation when it's a balanced conversation. It can't be always you. Sometimes it's me. You know what I'm saying? Like it has to be a give and take, right? And I think that so often it's like your problem. And it feels so good to have somebody on here. It's like, no, we both got problems. Let me list the ones you got. Let me list the ones they got. And then you're backing it up. I trust, you could be, I don't know. I trust it. It sounds great. And I'm like, even when you talk about Black women not being desirable, I can see that. I can see how people would get that just by our representation and how we move, right? We do need to do better. And the way you put it, at least for me, I receive it. We do need to do better. And it's all about how your delivery, like how you speak to people, and I think that that's the reason why many of us, at least for me, we're listening. Yeah. I didn't get offended by anything you just said.
Let me ask you a question.
Offended me.
Can I ask you a question, Shan?
And I agree with
Has he said, can you ask me? What you say? Has he said anything that Marcus, Trev, Sweeney, some of the guys, Shannon Rawls or JR, has he said anything that was foreign that none of us have already said?
So again, there are things that I agree with you too, Bruiser. I think, like I said, it's the delivery. Let's just talk about earlier. I told you I accept that I was wrong, and you decided to not say, okay, she gets it now. You threw it in my face to be like, okay, but you wanted like a battle, and I wasn't trying to give you that. I said, okay, I see your standpoint. Thank you for enlightening me. I get it now, but that wasn't even enough for you. And it's like, people are tired of the back and forth, It's like, can we find things that we can sit here and stop arguing with each other? Just find a solution. Like, you may think differently than I think. My walk in life is going to be totally different from yours. But can we have a conversation, like a decent conversation, and it not be like?
I thought I asked it with a good. How was my delivery with that question? I thought it was.
Okay, but there are things like Bruce. I can say I appreciate you too, because there are things that you say as well that I do agree with. I've seen you on King Talk. You take up for a lot of your beliefs are the same beliefs that I have, and I appreciate that, right? But in this particular, and I've told you that before, but in this particular situation, Jeff is new. I want to say everything that he said. He's pointed out the bad for both, right? And I can tell you from that, I can accept when you were talking to me, I'm like, dang, okay, I need to fix that, right? And it's just a delivery. I can't. Anyway, I just want to say I appreciate it.
So, brother podcast, basically, if me, Sweeney, M. White, Trev, and all the other brothers mirror your delivery, we can change the world.
No, do you know the difference? So here's the difference, right? He was actually listening. Like I could, like he. So no, because
you saying we don't listen to you?
Something when I said something to him about equity, and I was trying to explain that, he said, "Tell me more so I can be on the same page with you." And so my thing is always, if I say something that you don't understand, instead of rejecting it and putting it on me not knowing what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying that all of y'all do it, but the people from last night's panel, ooh. But he stopped and he was like, hold on, because I want to understand what you're saying. in conversations when we are trying to understand each other, because I come here and I've told y'all this, I come here so that I can understand better because I know that we're different and I'm listening to you guys. Now, sometimes I think that it's crazy, but that's just me. That's me in my opinion, and that ain't about you. But I come here to listen and learn. And so I can tell that he is actually listening and he's trying to communicate. And a lot of times, guys do not do that in these conversations. They're here to be right. They are not here to learn the perspective of women because we have a perspective. We do not solely have to acquiesce to your demands, but all of us have to understand each other so that we can adjust accordingly.
You don't think the brothers, and I'm not speaking to other guys. I don't know what happened last night. I wasn't there. But I'm talking about this crew, this consistent group of men, the M. Whites, the Sweeneys, the Travs, the JRs, the Darwins.
Not all
You
the
don't-
time, no.
Nah, we
I
be
don't
fighting with
believe
them,
it.
man. We just not of the caliber to speak in the right manner. So you gotta
No,
chalk it up. It is
it's
what it is.
so now M. White.
Why you ain't had to do
I-
that, but go ahead.
When Marcus is talking to me, he really is, like he asks me questions because he really is curious about things. And I can tell that. But Bruiser, when you ask questions, they be loaded questions, and you know that.
How?
You ask a lot. Am I wrong, ladies? Don't
You
you
ask a lot of
loaded
questions from a biased perspective, and you can
Give
tell
me
when you
one
ask
example.
certain questions.
Give me one example.
Let me give you this example. In the beginning, you specifically told Ask the Brother podcast that it would be the women who would be disrespectful and constantly cutting people off. But since we've been on here, every woman that has talked, you have cut off. You need to mute yourself in between. You about to do it now. You need to mute yourself in between when people are speaking to let the thoughts finish first before you respond. In that moment, it's already coming across as if you're not listening because you're already drafting a response to what they're saying before the full point is even getting out. You're constantly showing that. And I just thought that was kind of ironic. That was the main point I wanted to put out there. You said the women were going to be disrespectful, but Darren, you have been disrespectful to most of the women on the panel, and even to Ask the Brother podcast. As he's speaking, you'll cut him off to get your thought across. And I understand we're all extremely excited to say what we need to say, but it's okay to just sit back and listen, take in what everyone is saying, and then give your opinion. But because of how you respond to things, sometimes it comes across as if you already have your own preconceived bias notion and idea or ideology about what that person represents, their thoughts, what they feel, and you want to debunk it instantly instead of trying to understand it. And that's the difference that I feel the ladies are trying to let you understand. Ask a Brother podcast is coming across as understanding, his tone, his demeanor, his message. Everything is completely different to what you have displayed just today.
So I think this
Now,
kind of goes right back to
Let me
where we
respond to
were
that, Trav.
with the
Let me respond to
communication
it.
part.
Let me respond to it. So I agree that I did interrupt. And I think I set the precedence. Well, he may have talked before, but I did. I don't know if you remember, Brother Podcast. I did say, hey, look, if you need to interrupt, go ahead.
Yeah.
Because we do get feedback in the back checks that, hey, let this person speak, let that person speak.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't want to force you to speak whenever you haven't gathered your thoughts. That's why I say, hey, look, if you want to speak, go and interrupt. I don't care if anybody interrupt. But if y'all take it for a disrespect, that's a whole different thing. But I will say the reason why I do interrupt, because I know that oftentimes people carry a point and they had already drove it home. And I don't want to lose my response to a particular piece of the whatever they're saying. So I will interrupt. Interruption is not a bad thing. Some people take it as disrespect. I get it. You know, you set the terms on what you feel like respect is for you. And the other thing, the other reason why I interrupt on this particular show is because I've been sitting on these panels for maybe 2 to 3 years now. We have built up a habit or a norm here to interrupt. So I could make the argument that interruptions is expected. You get what I'm saying? So everybody
No,
can.
I don't get what you're saying when you begin the conversation by stating that the women are going to be disrespectful. Those are the words you
I
use.
haven't gotten
Say,
to that
I
point yet,
see it as disrespectful. Darwin, hold on.
but you interrupted me
I
though.
didn't. You were landing your thought,
No,
right?
see,
Because you interrupted
that,
me the
you
very
did what I
first
did. So now
time.
you see what I'm saying. That's the case.
But Darwin, the very first time I was speaking, the very first opening to my statement, you
Okay, so I gotta
interrupted
wait
me
till the 50% of
speaking.
your statement is done to interrupt. Or it's a certain threshold I gotta
No,
get.
no, you don't. I'm proving a point to you that you started off this full conversation by letting him know that the women would be disrespectful, is the word
You,
you use,
I was
and
gonna get to that
interrupt
part.
them.
I
Yet
haven't
you
got.
have interrupted every woman on this panel and have
I
not let them finish
understand.
their thought. JR got on here, and I understand that we do interrupt each other. It gets rowdy. We all want to jump in and give our opinion. But before we even started this, we stated that we're going to be way more calm this time because we have a guest. We're going to let him speak. We're going to let everyone else speak. And you have been the main person not doing that.
Well,
That's
look,
all.
I don't want to get hung up on this too long, but I will say this, and I rewind the tape to make sure I correct myself. But I do remember saying, I don't remember calling out a gender when I said you will be interrupted or you'll be cut off. I do remember saying that, look, it's, you know what I'm saying, coming here at the, I think I said 2 to 3 or 4 times. You know what I'm saying? It's your first time here, but you set the precedence, but you will be interrupted. I don't remember saying the women
Mhm.
are going to interrupt you. But if I did, I correct myself. But as you can see,
Mhm.
but I'll take it off of that because I don't want it to be about me.
This it's getting late. It's midnight on my end, so I part of the reason why I wanted to do this is actually so that what's to do, what's the answer, and I have 5 particular points, which apparently is probably pretty relevant in terms of things we can do to kind of start to address some of the issues that we're seeing between the sexes. Number one is listen and be intellectually curious about more than oneself. Just a refusal to do this means that you basically either find the subject matter uninteresting. So just to justify why you feel like you don't need to know, don't need to listen, or don't need to be more knowledgeable about a particular perspective. And then B, it reveals traits of laziness, narcissism, and solipsism. So that's a fancy way of saying if you're not intellectually curious about men, um, you're narcissistic. You're solipsistic. You're extremely self-absorbed when you don't when you don't care about the opposite sex, and the same applies to men. So when we try to dominate conversations in our homes and we try to approach things with women in such a way where we feel like we don't have to factor in how she sees things or how she feels or how she internalizes things, we're functionally doing the same thing. Number 2 is observe and inquire about the lives of those that are actively working to address these issues. Myself as a comparison, I with my credentials, I can probably work in any state, anywhere, and I intentionally choose to work in the hood. It's 2 blocks away from my birthplace. People have been shot, stabbed right outside of our property, and I still go there every day. And because I think that the work and the people matter more than my luxury, if you will. And if we were to talk in detail, I would tell you the trauma work we do, the food drives that we do, the jobs that we offer, the 2 programs we just started with the homeless population to help them with getting access to psychiatric and mental health services for individuals that were on Kensington Ave, which is literally known as the drug capital in the country. If you don't know what to do, why don't you align and get with the people who are doing something and figure out what ways in which they're trying to actually turn this stuff around. Number 3 is introspection of your beliefs, your views, your actions, and or inactions. Because if you become more introspective, you'll become a better friend, a better lover, And you'll actually start to think about how you act on public platforms. And when you're out, you'll think beyond just, this is just me being me, to what do people think about Black men when I move this way? What do people think about the Black community when I enter into a space? So when it's the two white women and I'm talking to Canadians, I'm representing y'all. So for whatever reason, when we get around each other, we kind of forget that part. People are still watching and they all don't look like us. So number 4 is asking yourself a simple question of, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong with my lack of empathy? What if I'm wrong with my lack of being interested in said other perspectives? And what if the people who don't care about women are also wrong? I would argue that the gender war is just filled with people that don't care. And then last but not least, spend time learning about the skill of argumentation, logic, deductive reasoning, and identifying fallacies. At the beginning, I think some of the ladies, either previously or at the beginning, they kind of gave certain arguments and explanations that were just filled with fallacies of assumptions and appeals of emotion and apex fallacies. None of those things apply to whether or not what I said was true. So when we get better at doing those things, we're going to heal. We're going to get closer to each other, genuinely. So those are the 5 things that I think that if we individually try to do them, and we'll listen to this recording and relook at it. If you take the 5 things I just listed, and then you look back at how this conversation went at different parts, you'll know which of the 5 you need to improve on. So you're like, you know what, that number 3, I'm not as introspective as I need to be. Or you know what, I don't observe people that's actually putting in the work. And instead of just arguing on social media, maybe I need to join him or her. So, those are the 5 things that I would conclude that can actually radically kind of turn the tide of how we can approach things differently.